Hi guys, how's everybody doing today? I am in Judges 12, and let me just tell you, when I first read this chapter this morning, I was kind of sleepy. I was like still in bed, and I was reading this chapter on my phone, and wow, like my mind was just blown. Okay, completely blown by this chapter and what we see in our culture today. So I thought I'd take the time to go ahead and do a video in addition to writing it, just because I think it's important. And I think it's important because history repeats itself, and I just think we should take note of this chapter. So, as every chapter of the Bible, but particularly this one in our day and age. So, we're at Judges chapter 12, and we see that Judges chapter 12 begins with a blatant lack of unity among God's people. So we see Ephraim come in, and they're picking up arms against their brothers in Gilead. So we're going to investigate that. If there's ever a chapter or country could relate to, it would be this. So in verse 1, we find the men of Ephraim being called to arms. And against whom were they setting out to fight? Like I said, they're setting out to fight against their own. Ephraim is called to arms against the Gileadites, whom Jephthah was leading at the time, and Jephthah, of course, was God's judge over Israel at this time. So think civil war, right? Think leader who many had rejected, and you can read about that in Judges chapter 11. I had written on that previously, last week or the week before, about how Jephthah was rejected by his own people for different reasons. But the most of which being his mother had been a prostitute, and so the other sons of his father rejected him. So anyway, Jephthah had just won a battle over Israel's worst enemies, right? The Ammonites. So unfortunately, after he won this battle, he sinned against God by making a vow that wasn't godly, and sacrificing his own daughter, his only daughter, in fact. And he ended up having to fight a battle against his own people here in Judges chapter 12. So, another thing I thought of, and we cannot discount this in any way, shape, or form. We cannot discount the butterfly effect for 1 second of the murder of innocent children, of anyone who's involved in that kind of atrocity, as Jephthah was with his own daughter. There is consequences to that, and I believe that they stretch into all other parts of life. And so I think we see some judgment coming here from that act. So think child sacrifice, because that was part of Jephthah's whole deal here. And of course, today we call that abortion most times. So we've got a lot of that. We've got the same things going on here as these people of God did then. So finally, what was Ephraim's dispute with Gilead? Because of course, like I said, they're all of God's people. But both camps are God's people, right? They're all part of Israel. What was their dispute? Why they taken up arms against Gilead? Why were they claiming to be angry enough to take up arms against their own people and have this civil war of sorts? Well, Ephraim claimed that because Gilead, under Jephthah's leading, had gone out to fight the enemy without them, now they had beef with Gilead themselves. And so basically they were saying, well, you never asked us to help you. You didn't come to us whenever you went to fight our common enemy. And they're supposedly so mad about this that they're going to fight a civil war now with Gilead. And guess what their revenge was going to be? They said, we will burn your house over you with fire. Judges 12:1b. So I don't know if you guys are getting the similarities here, but I don't know. It's just blowing my mind. So recapping, so far we have a nation divided against itself and a total lack of unity. We have the onset of civil war and a taking up of arms against one another's own people. We have child sacrifice and its consequences looming large in the backdrop. And we have angry men promising vengeance in the form of burning down other people's dwellings. Does anyone have any confusion as to why the Bible might just be relevant to us today? I don't. I don't know. So Jephthah, being the gentle giant that he was a warrior, remember, but he liked to try to solve things with diplomacy first. So just as when he went to his enemies, the Ammonites, once again here with his own people, with Ephraim, he tries diplomacy as his first course of action to diffuse this fight and to diffuse this hailstorm that's coming against him from his own people. He reminds Ephraim that he had indeed asked for help, and they had not come when he went out to fight the Ammonites, the enemy. And so he reminds them that the Lord gave these enemies into his hands. You'd think they would be happy that this guy had defeated the common enemies, that he was, he's winning for them, like they're part of the country, right? So you'd think they would be happy that things were getting better under Jephthah's rule, but they weren't. They weren't. They were mad because they claim that they weren't asked to help, which is false, right? Okay, if you look at Psalm 78, verse 9, I think 9, 10, maybe 11, it reminds us that Ephraim was the one who turned their backs from the battle, okay? And so we know this. Ephraim would be what we call today a deserter or a coward, right? They didn't go to fight when they were called, and now they're saying you didn't call us, which was a lie. So anyway, the truth is that the ones who took up arms wanting to fight against their own people and threatening to burn down their dwellings, they were, wait for it, they were lying. They were lying, okay? Read it again. Listen to it again. They were lying. The ones who took up arms wanting to fight against their own people, threatening to burn down their dwellings, were lying, okay? They were having this false narrative go on, and that was their excuse for trying to fight against their own brothers, okay? Why were they lying? That's the next question that begs an answer, right? Why were they lying? It doesn't tell us that information in this chapter, but my guess would be, it's just speculation here, that these men were very likely hoping to see Jephthah fail against the common enemy. They thought he would lose when he went out to fight the common enemy, perhaps. And number one, they probably didn't want involved in that mess. They're like, we're not going to die for, this. And so, of course, they were cowards. They turned from the battle. And not only that, but they didn't like Jephthah. They didn't like him. He was kind of like a reject, in certain places. So anyway, now after he's won and done all the hard work, they're proud. They're not proud of him. They're not proud of the work that he's done and the battle that he's won. They're pretending that they wanted to help and they weren't allowed. Now they want to be in charge and dethrone the guy that God himself had picked. Okay? And in fact, it wasn't only God that picked him. It was his own brothers and his own people that came back to him and said, hey, we know we threw you out of like our town and our family and everything, but we want you to come help us because we don't know how to fight this enemy over here and they're kind of bothering us. So like they used him basically, and then they wanted to get rid of him. So anyway, I just feel like there's a lot of parallels here. But so, not only now in this chapter, not only we have a nation divided against itself, a total lack of unity, which we already said, the onset of civil war, taking up of arms against one's own people, child sacrifice and its consequences looming large in the backdrop. We've got angry men promising vengeance in the form of burning down other people's dwellings. And we also have a God-appointed leader seeking diplomacy before the use of force, a group of armed liars who pridefully deny the truth that their very own cowardice has created. We see blame shifting and seeking to destroy all authorities from over top of them, and a general reason being given as being because, now get this, you aren't one of us. The reason they're doing these things, not only because they weren't called to help, which they were, which is a lie, they're lying, number one, and number two, their other reason that they're stating for this behavior is because you aren't one of us. You aren't like us. Your people aren't like us, and you aren't part of our people. When in fact, they truly were all one people under one leader, under God. But these insurrection people, they didn't adhere to that. They said, you're not like us, you're not one of us, and so we're not all one people. Okay, so, and guess what happens? Ephraim lost. For those of you who got lost in all the weird names, Ephraim was the group that took up arms against their own people out of pride and under a false narrative and under lies. In reality, though, they all lost because no one wants to kill their brothers. No one wants to be put in that position by their own people who they love to self-defend, to be made to self-defend, to be made to kill their own in order to protect those that they love from harm, like their families. No one who isn't evil wants to do that anyway. And so to me, this chapter today was altogether mind-blowing. I just really feel like a lot of people should consider Judges 12 in light of our own country and chaos. And the Bible has all the answers. You don't have to change the Bible to make it say what you want. You just have to read it and understand it in context about what was going on then and apply it to your circumstance today. Because all of the circumstances that you could possibly face are there. They're in there somewhere. And you can find out just how people acted, how God acted, and how what the solutions are, right? And there's nothing new under the sun. We aren't the first generation to deal with disunity and people trying to burn each other's houses down and lying, false narratives, and all of it. So just saying, it's a good chapter to read, study, think on today, and I hope you guys do that, and I hope you have a good day. Thanks for listening.